Today I'm going to show you how to do the half double crochet version of a foundation chain. So this technique replaces your chain stitches, which you would normally do at the start of a crochet project. And a foundation half double crochet chain is what I use at the start of my Ruby Star Lace shawl pattern. So for the purpose of the tutorial, I'm going to be using the yarn and hook that are recommended for that pattern, but ideally what you want to make sure is that your yarn and hook align. So I'm using James Seabrat's Marble Chunky with a 6mm hook. First, we're going to start with a simple slip knot, which I tend to just do with my fingers. I know there's many ways to do it around the hook, but I learned this as the simplest way. And then the hook goes through front to back, and when you tighten it, you end up with your working yarn in the front and your tail at the back. From your simple slip knot, you are going to chain 2, same way you would for any chain start, and then yarn over as if you're preparing to do your half double crochet. Now we're going to go back into that very first chain, and we want to make sure we're getting both the back little loop there and the top of the V on the hook. So not just the V, but the V and the little bump, so you've got 2 on the hook and 1 underneath. Pull a loop through, just that, again, as if you were to half double crochet. And that's creating the base of our chain stitch row. So you'll notice as we're doing this, we're basically working 2 rows at once. We're doing our foundational chains, and we're doing our first row of stitches. So this chain stitch row, every time we pull up a loop from it, we're going to make a single chain. So your first move of the stitch is to pull up that chain. From there, because we're doing a half double crochet, we're going to go through all 3 of the loops on the hook to complete your half double crochet. So I know it looks a little goofy right now, but I promise it will start to come together. So we're going to yarn over to load the hook again, just as if you're about to go into a half double crochet. Then we're going to kind of just twist that there so you can see that little V that's happened from our chains. You're going to insert your hook into that V. So on the top of your hook should be the 2 bands of that V, and on the underside of your hook is the rest of the stitch we just worked. Make sure every single stitch that you've only got those 2 loops. If you go in too far, you're going to end up pulling your stitch through the wrong part of the chain. Again, pull through, and that forms the start of your chain row. So we're going to chain 1 in it, and then make your half double crochet by pulling through all 3 loops on your hook. We're going to repeat this process as many times as your pattern calls for. So the pattern that I'm creating this tutorial for calls for 40 of them. We've currently done 2. At any point you can check your count. Get it to focus. There we go. You can check your count by counting the live V stitches you see on the top. So you'll notice what this produces is a bottom row that looks like a loose chain and a top row that looks like your live stitches, effectively creating your chain row and your first line of half double crochets in one shot. We'll just do a couple more of these so you can really get the hang of it. Go into that bottom stitch. Sometimes it takes a couple extra fingers to guide it. Pull up your loop. Make sure you're pulling up your loop to about the same height as this bottom one here, which is eventually going to be your top stitch. And then chain 1 in that loop and complete your half double crochet. And like I said, you can see that spot there how if we had not pulled it all the way up to the height of this existing stitch, it'd be very hard to get into. But because we did, it's relatively simple to find the 2 bars that you need to get into and pull through, chain 1, finish your half double crochet, yarn over, go into that last stitch, pull through, chain 1, finish your half double crochet, into the stitch, chain 1, and finish your half double crochet. So as you can see, this makes a really, really nice line, very uniform, very flat, and it gives you a really good base foundation for your next row of stitches. Alright, so the last thing I'll show you is after you've done a row of these foundation half double crochet stitches, how we're going to turn around to continue working. So it's important to note that as we're working these foundation half double crochets, the bottom of our work, the edge, is actually on the top. So it's those edge stitches that we're actually slipping our hook into to create the next chain that becomes the base for each of the half double crochets built off of it. Which means that when we turn around to work, we want to make sure we're working what is currently the bottom. So typically you're ending your row with a chain 1 and turn. Make sure that when you turn, you're pointing those live stitches up. Then that's what you're working into for your next row. So just as an example, we'll do a couple of half double crochets into this row. And you can see how easy it is to work into those stitches as opposed to working into a chain, which often requires a lot of fumbling and as you go, making sure you're not twisting anything and untwisting things if you've got a particularly curly yarn. Instead, this lets you easily work on the top of them as if they're just any standard live stitches. It gives you a nice flat gives you a nice flat edge at the bottom that looks just like live stitches, which is actually very, very helpful for when you're putting on a border as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you can apply it to whatever it is you're currently working on. And I do hope you give that pattern a try, that Ruby Star Lace shawl, because it's a ton of fun and it starts with this and it's only a simple 2-row repeat. So yeah, if you have any questions about this process or about any similar stitches that you're trying to work through, definitely feel free to let me know in the comments or reach out. And if this was helpful to you, then please like the video and subscribe for more tutorials.